One of the main unwritten rules that I used to always follow is that, oh, you can't flip something that's already been flipped. You know, if someone's already got there before you and they did it, you know, it's cheating to use their sample. But I don't think it's true. I think if you can turn something that's already been used into something new, it's even more impressive. You have to think that boom bap and like old school beat making has been around for years, for decades now. And if you're just starting out producing, or if you started producing like I did like 10 years ago, I think, people have had a head start on you. They got to all the records before you did. All the like big jazz records and old soul records and stuff. They've already been flipped. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to take a sample from a beat I love, one of my favourite beats of all time, and turn it into my own beat with my own spin on it and make it something new. This is one of my favourite beats ever. It's called God's Bathroom Floor by Atmosphere, and it samples a song called Humbling Love by John Clemmer.
From a head full of pressure, rest the senses that I clutch. Made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me.
When I first heard this beat, it was one of my favourite things I'd ever heard. I think I heard it before I even started producing. A lot of my early beats especially were totally inspired by that sound. Lately I was like looking for something to sample to make a beat, and I was listening to this track again and I thought, I want to flip that sample as well. Just because they did it first doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it yourself. So that's what I did. So here's how I flipped Humbling Love by John Clemmer, different to how Atmosphere did it. So here's the section I took from the sample. And then I took a little section from the end of the sample and I chopped it up a small bit just to make it a bit different at the end of the second playthrough of the loop. So I pitched that up by 400 cents and I added a little EQ on it. Just took out a small bit of the high to make room for vocals if a rapper wanted to jump on it, and a tiny bit of the low end, just so the kicks would come through and things like that. So here's how the sample sounds now. Another thing I did was I used the low end theory, for those of you who don't know, the mainstay in hip hop, where you basically take out all the high and mid end of the sample and just leave the low end, well, the bassy side, and then use that to be the bass for the sample. I just used it to fill it out a bit because it sounded a bit light. So to do that, you go into multi-band compressor. I just used the stock Fruity Loops one. Then you hit mute on mid, mute on high, and then with the low band, I have it set to about here. I bring that mid band to about here. So it's just the low end of the sample. So here's how this sounds. You might not hear it if you don't have headphones in, but it's alright. So it just fills out the sample a bit. So here's everything all together. That's the whole sample. That's basically the whole melody of the beat. As you can see, I already have it pre-arranged here. This is a beat I already had made. I didn't make this from scratch now. But you can see it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. There's a few changes in the drums and things like that to keep it fresh. But that is the crux of the beat. So next we go on to the drums. So like in God's Bathroom Floor, they have that like gritty drum break. But I wanted to put my own spin on this, which is do my own little, basically 90s boom bap drums on that sample. So super simple. The swing is up a good bit. It's up to 80%-ish. And then I just laid down this real simple pattern. So here's the drums and how they're sounding. You can see I've got 2 layers of kicks here. I did this in my last video. When I'm doing ghost notes, so the little ba-dum into the kicks, I like to just clone the kick and drop the volume down loads and then just drop in the ghost kicks wherever. I find it's easier doing it that way than through the piano roll with velocity like some producers like to do. I just find this is a quicker way of doing it. Then for the mixing sound to kind of like beef up the drums, I use a preset that I've just made myself and saved. So if I go open mixer track state, boom bap drums, go to, and all that is a Fruity limiter set to the preset for drums. Then a bit of RC20 to just, put a bit of distortion on it and, mess with the sound a bit. You don't have to use RC20, I know it's expensive, there's plenty of bit crushers or other plugins out there that do the same job. I also have my kick on a different channel because I like to have my kick not bit crusher, not going through the RC20. So that just has the limiter on it. And then you can see you just drop the volume down a bit so it's not too overpowering. So here are the drums without all the effects, and then I'll play them with all the effects. That's without, and now here's with. And then that's the drums and the sample. So here's what we've got so far. That's pretty much the beat done. That's the main loop. That goes on through the whole beat, as you can see. So now it's just filling out little extra bits and keeping it fresh now and then.
Now to spice it up.
It's because this is like an old school 90s beat. I wanted to do it as authentic as I could. I wanted to get one of those horn samples in, like a horn stab. So I found this sound. And what I did was find where the notes sounded right, which I thought was here on every beat. I dropped the volume, I dropped the velocity a bit here each time. So this works the same as a delay. It's essentially hitting once and then getting quieter and quieter and quieter. Then it'll come back. You can just use a delay to do it. I just find this is an easy way of doing it. And it's kind of how they'd do it back in the day, where you'd have the same horn sample all across the MPC at different volumes, and then you'd tap it out. So here's how that horn sounds now when you mix that in with the beat. I just kind of have that hitting every few bars. I basically listened through the beat, and wherever I felt like it was time for it to hit, I put it in again. All I had on that horn was a small EQ, and I literally used the preset, and I used old telephone, which basically takes out loads of the low end, loads of the high end, and just boosts up this range here. It sounds like this. So now here's how it all sounds together.
Sounds good to me.
Another thing I added, to separate the hook from the verse, because it's essentially the same loop again and again and again. This vocal sample, which I use loads in my beats, I always go back to it. It's from the track Slam Harder by Onyx. It's in the intro. I just grabbed the acapella, and it sounds like this. Very rowdy sample. And I just stuck a little EQ and a delay on it. EQ, same EQ again, preset old telephone, gets rid of all the lows and some of the highs. And then a delay, I use stereo effect, the preset stereo effect on Fruity Delay. And the EQ is nice because it kind of keeps things, the listener knows it's there, but it's not overpowering, it's not annoying. And it also has room for a rapper to rap over the watts. So here's everything all together. And that's pretty much the beat. All that was left to do was some arranging. Some of that's already done. So to arrange it, all I did was in the intro, I stuck a compressor on the main sample, which got rid of all the low end. I'll show you here now. Yeah, I muted the low band, I have the mid and highs. Then I set an automation clip for that, have it here. So what that does is when the beat drops, everything comes back. So the low end comes back, bounces nicely into the beat. And then also I do this sometimes. This knob here is a stereo separation, so how mono or stereo the sound is. I like to have my intros very mono, and then as soon as the beat drops, that opens up and everything opens up into, the beat comes alive essentially. So you can see I have that already set here. Mono, 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 and then drops and dips right into just normal stereo sound, but it gives a nice effect. Here's some of the intro with some hi-hats and stuff as well. And that's the whole beat. For the master, I just use Ozone, and I use there's a vintage hip hop preset for mastering. I just use that. Nothing too crazy. I'd say this beat took me about half an hour to do. Because it's easy when the sample is good. It's easy to work with it. So that's why I say break the golden rule if you want.
How many rules are you gonna break?
Sample whatever you want. Who cares if someone's already did it? Who cares if it's already a hit song? Flip it in your own way, turn it into your own beat. And you'll find new listeners with it who maybe don't know the original beat, or even ones who do, and they'll appreciate the callback because they'll know you know that classic song. Like, especially if it's something in your niche, like God's Bathroom Floor would be for my music and producers who know me. So yeah, I think it's worth doing. Break the golden rule every now and then. Be inspired by big samples that you've heard or flips you've already heard. Learn from them rather than, you know, oh, they got there before me, now I can't use that song ever. Don't do that. So yeah, I hope you liked the video. Like and subscribe if you did. Second video on the channel. It's getting a bit better, I think. Getting a bit more natural. But a long way to go still. But we'll get there together, hopefully. So yeah, thanks for watching. Good luck.